Hello, everybody, to our first panel for Sunday. We are back at Dritter Putzke. Today we're gonna talk about Afro House in general. What is Afro House? What is the difference, or what is the special of it? And who are the people behind Afro House? And I have here a duo, artist, and an artist too. So. Kid Fonque, Hyenah, and KEENE. And for the people, I would say, introduce yourself and tell the people who you are, what are you doing. I think it's the easiest way.
Well, thanks for having us first. I'm Lloyd.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are both KEENE. We are brothers from Panama. We have moved here to Berlin 6 years ago to focus on our music. In our country, Panama, we started as DJs, but we also had a huge focus on that. We wanted to make music, so we started that also, and we made events. We made quite a few venues. Some were not focused into electronic music, also a lot of cinema, jazz, theater as well. And yeah, we are 6 years now here making music, running our own label, Cacao Records, enjoying life as much as possible.
Nice, great. Next one, Hyenah.
Yeah, hello, I'm Hyenah. I'm a DJ, artist, producer. I run the label as well. Called Rise Music, and we also do showcases for Afro House in Berlin at Watergate mainly, but also other places, and we also do it worldwide. We're a crew at Rise of different artists. Jamie, obviously, and then Floyd was always associated. He's like a floating member of Rise, not like in the circle, but that's a different story. And a few more people of color that are highly invested in Afro House.
Hi, I'm Kid Fonque. I'm from South Africa. I used to work at one of the biggest house labels about 7 years ago in Johannesburg. And I currently, for the past 6 years, run my called Stay True Sounds. And I have a radio show on national radio in South Africa every week where I play a lot of independent, underground house music and Afro house music. And DJ, producer, just happy to be in Berlin to spread the music that I have coming out of South Africa.
Nice to have you here, guys.
So, sorry, I really don't want to make this mistake. Walter Grillo is also part of the Rise crew, and I forgot to mention him at this point. Since he doesn't release music so far, I just forgot, and I really don't want to. Sorry about that.
Okay. Nice to have you here, guys. It's a pleasure for me to have a little talk with you, to have a little chat. In general, for me, it's also Afro House, completely new thing. And what is Afro House? Can you tell the people, can you tell me something about Afro House?
So how are we gonna do the order?
Yeah, like, who want to talk? Like, if you want to start?
I think Kid Fonque should answer that, since he's from South Africa, and Afro House is mainly from South Africa. That's at least how I see it.
In South Africa, there's a couple of scenes in the house music world. There's a lot of different crews, if you will, or styles within house music. So I very much promote and am involved in the deep house scene. But then there's the Afro house scene, or what we call Afro tech, which I know is driven by a lot of really great producers and DJs, including Black Coffee, Kulo de Song, Ino Napa, K Soul. There's so many great DJs and producers repping the Afro house scene. But when it comes to what it is, to answer your question, I think it's been around for the longest of time. It's been around since I can remember house music, but it was called tribal house. Tribal House was kind of like, from what I could remember, Ozenlade was producing that sort of sound and still does produce that sort of sound. And then it felt to me that all the new producers or the guys that are kind of coming up in the scene now, that they took that tribal house sound and reinterpreted it into a South African sound, which is very influenced, A, from South Africa, and B, on the electronic side from Europe. But it's kind of one of our biggest exports from a global perspective. I see a lot of producers and DJs from South Africa touring the world, representing the sound. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, there's Coffee, but there's also Cairo, Napa. Guys are really taking the scene seriously, and it feels like it's a part of our infrastructure in South Africa.
Ah, nice. And what is the special or the difference between other music to Afro House?
So in general, it's a kind of house that has a heavy focus on the percussion and rhythm, and not necessarily, but very often these characteristic vocals and a theme around the ethnic. But for us, for example, we come from the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean there's a strong Afro-Caribbean influence as well. So we would consider that also part of the genre. Like he said, there was a heavy influence of what was called tribal, and now, yeah, I think there could be maybe a time to say that we have like the opportunity to divide a little more. I don't know, but I would say the more characteristic thing I would find is the percussion on it and drums, shakers, I don't know, this kind of elements that are heavily focused.
I think Afro House is basically the essence of house in a way, since house is black culture and Afro House is kind of turning house full circle in a way. Like the house is going back to its essence, to its main ingredients, and the culture of people of color, people from Africa with an African background, and it's very much focused on the groove in my how I see it, and it's also a lot about it's not there's not always the 2 and 4 clap or snare. It's a lot of shakers. You don't need the off hi-hat, and it's very much, I think, for me what makes Afro House so magic is that the percussions are the lick, the groove, the thing that sticks with you is the rhythm, and there's a lot of melodies, but the groove is basically the hook. That's how I feel Afro House works a lot.
What do you think it is? It's important, popular music genre, or it's rising? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could say it's already popular. Definitely also rising, like it's getting more popular with time. But yeah, going back to your question, I also agree with them. Like it sticks mainly on its groove and on the percussion.
And like, if you host parties as an Afro House artist or a label, for example, like, is there what is the difference when you hosting parties like between a techno party or a tech house party, for example? Is there also a difference, or it's quite the same?
Like we organize parties in Panama, but yeah, we could say that we don't organize like Afro House, only Afro House parties.
Okay.
Like they could say like house music parties. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I think Hyenah could answer that question better.
Yeah, I think Afro House or African house music has been played and DJed at all kinds of parties for a long, long time. Like the Innovision guys have been working with Afro House artists and have been releasing Afro House music, and they played it at their parties. So I think in general, in-house, there has always been an African influence. When you talk about Afro House parties, when it becomes more pure, It's definitely rising also by the help of the popularity of Black Coffee. He's been representing that sound worldwide for a while now. He's been a big star in South Africa for a long time, way before he became big in the rest of the world. But yeah, I think it's rising. I think it's still niche as a genre for itself, but it's been in the scene for a long time, just not as an independent player, basically. It was always connected to other types of music or other genres within the house music. But it's gaining a bit of independence right now, I think.
What do you think about the global scene for Afro House? Like, what is the influence to other genres, to other fans of the scene? They come over to the Afro House scene, or what do you think about that?
I think it is like different cultures coming together. What is also very popular about Afro House in general is that it's very easy to approach. You don't have to be like either super high on something to enjoy it and dance for like 8 hours straight. You can basically not even have to be into house or electronic music and you can enjoy it. So that's very helpful, obviously, for Afro House. On the global scene, I think it's gaining momentum. It works in warm places, in comfortable places, like Mexico is turning into a key market these days, and Afro House is getting bigger and bigger over there. Yeah, it just has this warmth and this feeling of togetherness, and it's comfortable in a way. It's comfortable in an energetic way, and I think that is also when it comes to music. It's a nice way, and it's a fresh breeze when there was, especially when we consider that there was a lot of hard music around and people were just roaring and banging and stuff. And I think that is like a fresh breeze, and people really enjoy that on the global scene. And people can connect. People can connect to the positive energy, to the warmth, to the rhythm-driven side of Afro House. And rhythms have been everywhere in the world, and people enjoy dancing. Dancing is about rhythm. So that's kind of, it can connect to many different cultures and many different genres, and people continue connecting it to different genres.
Like, is Afro House more techno or is it house? Like, what is the music comes from, or where's the music comes from? Is it you can find more the techno vibes or the house vibes in it?
You can find anything. That's the magic about it, I think. You can, I think, like Alan described before, it's been big in South Africa for a long time, and I think that was also kind of the magic about Afro House is that South Africa has been so disconnected for such a long time from the global world, and that turned South Africa into this kind of petri dish. So they could breed their own thing for a long time without having a lot of influences from the outside. And all of a sudden, the world discovered that petri dish where they kind of independently were making their own thing, and they were like, whoa, this is so fresh, this is very interesting. Let's connect that to what we have been doing here, no matter if it was techno or house or even like slow house or disco-ish stuff. So all of a sudden, this African flavor became interesting for many other genres and people. So I wouldn't say it's a subgenre of any of them.
Yeah.
It's its own thing.
Yeah, to extend on what Hyenah is saying, I mean, Afro House is so big in South Africa that it gets playlisted on national radio. Guys like Zakes Bantwini and Black Coffee himself and other guys, they get African vocalists, and they'll sing on songs, and those songs can chart number 1, number 2 in the whole country. And it's kind of like it's just a big part of who we are, Afro House. And the different shades of Afro House, I think you'll get that in any style of house. So you'll get the techno or Afro tech influenced Afro House, and then you'll get the soulful Afro House, and then you'll get the kind of quite progressive Afro House. I think there's just so many different producers producing so many different things, but if you're a DJ, you could put it all together in a nice way, you know what I mean? But there's no specific genre. It's all kind of like offshoots of one genre.
I would like to describe it in a way that Afro House in South Africa is kind of like hip hop in the US. It can be connected to anything. Or reggae in Jamaica. There can be like jiggy hip hop, there can be gangster hip hop, there can be pop hip hop. It is kind of like that, I think. And it's that big. It's at the airport, it's at the mall, it's at the gas station, it's everywhere.
You talked about like Black Coffee. Is he the only the lonely headliner, the global headliner in this scene, or is there someone else who from the big players, for example?
He's definitely the biggest, without a doubt, and he's been doing it for such a long time, and he's always represented the sound. That's always been his thing. But there's a lot of other guys coming up in the scene, and a lot of guys that are knocking on Europe's door so that they can start exposing themselves as DJs and producers. Hyenah and I were chatting before we sat on the panel, and people like Napa, who's very important in the Afro House scene in South Africa. He was doing a lot of touring before lockdown. I think lockdown slowed things down for people that were active DJs outside of South Africa. People like Shimza are very, very important in the Afro House scene. And I think they're also really trying to get their foot in the door across the world. But there's one thing that needs to be noted from a South African perspective that I think maybe not the whole of the world realizes, but we take DJing so seriously in South Africa, and there's so many producers, so many kids are striving to be like Shimza and Black Coffee. These guys are idols in South Africa. People look up to them, and rightfully so. And it's very serious. When it comes to DJing, I've been in the record business for over 20 years, and DJing is a very, very serious thing in South Africa. And sometimes we have people from overseas come over, and guys don't dance. They just stand at the front of the DJ booth and watch. And all they want to do is see your technical skills. Because technically, I feel South Africa has some of the best DJs, at least in the Afro House scene. We are pedantic when it comes to how we present and showcase our music.
And what do you think? There are gonna be more global players in this scene in the future?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think the Capo is almost there. In fact, I think Capo is there. I mean, he was in LA last week. He was in Mexico the week before. I'm playing with him in London next week. Shimza is definitely knocking a lot of doors down to open up his brand across the world. He's quite big in Portugal. There's a handful of guys that have been doing it for many years. And I think South Africa is a beautiful country when it comes to music, because we're one of the few countries that just keep like inventing genres. So Afro tech is definitely born from South Africa. Piano is born from South Africa. Gom is born from South, and we just the one constant is its house. It's just that different rhythms and different tempos. So we're a very house crazy house. We live on house in South Africa.
I think it's very interesting, the question of like, okay, here we have Black Coffee, and maybe there's a void in between the rest of the group. And also, when you think about the origins of the genre and probably the pioneers, he mentioned Osunlade. But for example, for us, Dennis Ferrer, who is not considered an artist in this genre, he made amazing records 20 or 25 years ago. The guys from Men at Work, Kerry Chandler as well. And at some point, since there was not a market, these guys maybe had to, also Jerome Sydenham with Ivan Records, they had to go somewhere else, you know? They had to maybe focus on more traditional house and techno. And I think this is an interesting shift in what is happening, that projects like Rise or what the South African scene and artists have been bringing to the table, that finally artists can thrive in this sound and genre. And I can also, or we can also relate to this idea that it's definitely gonna be the time for more artists to show up. But it's an interesting phenomenon, because I could say that Black Coffee is maybe the biggest electronic music artist at the moment. Yeah. If you look at his numbers, the amount of streams, the amount of follows, shows, etc., he's probably the biggest player. Maybe even crossover, working with other kind of artists as well. So yeah, it's interesting time for the genre.
And I think there's some sort of a challenge there as well, since Black Coffee is kind of the only superstar that there is right now for Afro House. But most people that make it big in Afro House kind of want to not really disconnect, but connect to other genres, because the infrastructure in other genres is just so much bigger. There are not many major Afro House festivals or stages or clubs that are focusing on that are known for this is the mecca for Afro House. It's more like the infrastructure is just starting to grow and starting to become stronger. It's just the very beginning, and especially in comparison to other genres. So the big guys, since they reach some sort of a glass ceiling at a certain point, they want to connect to other genres, because this glass ceiling does not exist there. That's where they can grow into. And that's some sort of a challenge for Afro House, but it's also an opportunity. Since on one side, they bring in Afro House to these stages, to people that possibly haven't heard it before. On the other side, there's a limit so far right now. I think the infrastructure is just starting to grow, because there are more crews that are professional, like the Sondela Records in London, which is a sub-label of Defected. They are pushing hard on the London side, England side, UK side. Even though there have been many other crews that have been doing it, but now they have this power that the Defected push behind it, which is good for the Afro House scene. Yeah, and there's other players growing, starting to become stronger everywhere in the world. For example, in Tunisia, there's a big scene of people who are pushing it hard. And Greece is also very strong. There's the Madoras in the House crew who are doing stuff. Then there's Global Fantasy in Greece as well, that are very strongly connected to Black Coffee as well. Portugal is his own thing with Jeff, but there's stuff popping up here and there. There's also in the Netherlands, there's more and more stuff coming up. So yeah, I think we're just in the beginning, and we still have, we are a developing country when it comes to house music.
Yeah, of course, yes. Like, what do you think, like, as an artist, do you need this unique selling point to become a big star in this scene, or it depends on your music, or like, what is the thing you gonna go bigger and bigger in this scene?
You mean Afro House?
Yeah, Afro House, like
music scene in general.
Yes.
I don't know, because I think for this topic, maybe we should meet in 5 years or something, and see how, like he mentioned, all this infrastructure develops. For example, now we're in Germany, and here in Germany, I would say, besides Rise and Watergate that gave the space to Rise to develop, there's not much more. There's no stages, like he mentioned, big stages or big festivals focused on the sound. So I would say it's probably too early to talk about this. Is my personal opinion. I don't know what you guys would say, like what would be the steps to become a superstar in Afro House at the moment.
Yeah, it's super difficult coming from my perspective, because I come from a country where we already have all the stars. All the stars are being exported from South Africa, because, like I said, Afro House is like an institution. So, as I said earlier, it feels like South Africa is starting to dominate the scene on a global level. But from what I've experienced, I still think that there's a lot of work to be done globally to get to the level where they need to be, where it's almost seen as a techno or tech house in somewhere like Berlin. where everyone knows the DJs and everyone goes to an event because of that. It feels like there still needs to be a lot of growth for the Afro House scene, which is happening. It's happening, and I feel like it's early days.
I also think it. Oh, sorry. You wanna?
Yeah, just the same, that it's just a matter of time. So it becomes really, really big. But I think it has all the ingredients already. Like it has like a really catchy rhythm. It's very positive vibes. So I think it's just a matter of time for it to finally like completely expand, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I just think there's, in opposite to other scenes, the infrastructure is just not very low, but it's lower than in other genres, and that's something we need to work on. So it's very important that people keep on pushing, keep on building, professionalizing, making things more sustainable, and let the whole thing grow. And I think if the whole scene and the whole infrastructure is growing, naturally there's going to be more superstars. If there was a recipe for becoming a superstar, please send it over to any of us. Yeah, we just have to work it and make it grow together. And I think that is one very nice thing about Afro House, that it's very much connected on a friendly level. It's a network, everybody, we are all supporting each other. There's no elbows like, get this guy out of the way, or this guy's an idiot, or blah, blah, blah. This is not the case. We are working together, and we're trying to make things work and grow, and I think that's what I love about it as well. One more thing.
Yeah,
I think also the fact that you guys have opened the door for having this conversation, this panel on your project means a lot as well, that you know of what is happening, and so I think that also will play a role. These kind of opportunities will play a role in the future for making Afro House artists thrive and have exposure, and so more people get the idea of what is happening in this genre. I would say that's only.
I think just to add to this topic, I mean, if there were ever a song that could cross over in Europe or in Germany that is Afro House and got accepted on national radio, I think that would just change the game for everyone over here, because we have so much support in South Africa for Afro House on radio, like Zakes Bantwini's, what's the name of the song? Osama. It is #1 on national radio in South Africa for the past 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And obviously these sort of achievements create so much hype around a scene. So now when Zakes Bantwini DJs, he will play that song and he'll play a whole set of Afro House. And that's why people go to see him, because it is so popular. If there were a way to get something as popular on national German radio, I think it would open the doors for everyone that's sitting here now. And I think those are the things that have helped open the doors for Black Coffee on a global level too, is the fact that his music is supported by the major record labels, and they land up on radio and music videos, etc., etc. So I think you guys need to come up with something that could spin on radio, and then everything will just, go crazy.
And how is this scene, how is Afro House growing, like especially here in Germany? Does it need more labels, more big labels, more supporters, more agencies who support the little artists and also the big artists, or what do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of very good producers, and there's also very good labels. I think we don't lack that. I think what we lack the most is showcases and clubs that are willing to accept Afro House or support Afro House, plus including everything that comes with it. I mean, to be honest, there is still a lot of racism in Germany as well, and Afro House, as the name says, it's African related in a way, and for quite a few places there are still problems for people of color entering clubs
being able to feel accepted and welcome and safe in clubs. So I think this is also connected to a cultural movement, to become aware, to open up for diversity, to accept that we are a colorful society in Europe and accept African culture as something rich and celebrate it instead of just saying immigrants, blah, blah, blah. And I think that is a key factor as well, and that needs change in society. And that's why I think, for me, the whole Rise showcase and Rise label work is so important, because I think this is a very important topic that goes way beyond music and genres.
Now, like I want to go back to your artists, like at KEENE and Hyenah, and what is your future? What can we expect for the future for KEENE and Hyenah, like with your music, your project, and everything?
Well, we are working on making. It's not so complicated. A lot of new music, new releases. At the moment, we will go back to Latin America. Like I mentioned, Mexico is. We were in August playing, and we were impressed how important Afro House have become in the public. And when you look at the data of streams and all that, it's also. I mean, actually, not only for Afro House music in general, in music, statistically, Mexico City, for example, is one of the trend-setting cities in the world. If your music gets to become popular there, probably algorithmically will do also in the rest of the world. I think also Jakarta and a few other unexpected places are like this at the moment. But among all of them, Mexico, it's welcoming and it's demanding a lot of Afro House. So we expect to spend, we want to spend some time there at the end of the year. This year we also started a party that is called Cacao City, where we try to celebrate diversity, which is a very important part of our culture and our background as Panamanian. Panama is a very small country, but everyone comes from a different background, let's say. For example, we come from a Jamaican family, for example. So we want to celebrate that and expose that also in our music and our sound. And this is what we're looking for in the future, yeah, at the moment.
And from your side?
I just released an EP on Watergate called Once a Man. Then there's a new EP coming up that I cooperated with a South African singer called Deep Aztec. That's going to come out on Human by Default, which is a Bedouin's label. So that's also nice for me to like connect with this organic house, desert house, whatever you want to call it, genre to see. They already play a lot of Afro House as well, but it's a related genre, and I'm very much looking forward to see how that's gonna play out. And I'm about to release my album next year, starting like the first single is in production right now. And that one's gonna be released on my own label. There's gonna be, I think, 3 or 4 singles, and then the full album is gonna play out. And I'm very happy with it. I tried to approach it not completely as a club music album, but more like with a lot of vocals, songs that can be played on the radio, but are still the Hyenah identity type of sound.
Thanks. And Kid Fonque, what is your future? What are your future projects?
So I run Stately Sounds Records. It's about 6 years young. We're a big label in South Africa, and I think the focus is always house music. But I do release some Afro house music that I really like, and I've got a keen ear to discover new talent. Someone to look out for in the Afro house world that's coming out in, I think, March or April next year is a kid from Durban. His name is Hyperphonic. He's done some great remixes for a lot of labels, and he's done a lot of collaborations. So I'm working with him, and my label we have probably 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 4 releases a month coming out. There's not as many labels in South Africa that cater for this sort of thing. The majors are only interested in pop music, and I'm a piano, so it really does help my label because I get to pick up all these great artists from across the country that aren't pop music and represent them. So yeah, I mean, if you just go and check out all our social media, Stay True Sounds, you'll see the amount of content we put out and the amount of talent we have coming out of South Africa. But when it comes to Afro House, the new school guys that I'm into and that I'm releasing, as I said, is Hyperphonic. Texan's doing some stuff with us. Technique is amazing. I'm probably going to hopefully do some work with Napa. But there's just so many producers in South Africa that are doing amazing stuff. It's actually difficult to keep up with everyone.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, I wanted to add a bit of for what my brother was saying, like that we are as artists also exploring more and more that diversity and with whom we collaborate. To mention some artists we're collaborating for next year, artists that we admire a lot and we consider are doing like great stuff. Filolo Solo, he lives in the Netherlands. I think he's doing really interesting Afro music. Floyd Lavin. There is this duo Sparrow and Barbosa. They one of them is from Uruguay, and the other one is from Switzerland, but they're based in Madrid. We're also collaborating with them. Crazy musicians, percussionist, one of them, and also, I don't know, on the label level with Emmanuel Yal, Enonapa for next year. So yeah, we're trying to connect more with the African roots. Saint Ebo also.
Also, we are exploring a lot of Mexican not new producers, but they have maybe not been in the front, but they are making really interesting combination of Afro and funk, which we find very special and want to showcase as well.
My last question is like for newcomers, especially like, how can newcomers get in contact with the right label, or do you have recommendations for newcomers? Because like maybe it's especially here in Europe, the market is not that big and there's not that big label or mainstream label, I think. What is your recommendation for an upcoming newcomer?
For like our personal experience, I would say to try to contact directly the artists. I think there is always kind of a taboo and people like a barrier that people maybe are afraid of or shy to contact artists. So I don't know. For us, we just do it, and many times, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Depends. But I think for us as artists, it's important to have like a real connection with the person. Maybe have a conversation. Maybe it would work or not, but I think that's the best way to connect. Like try to reach them out. And
so if a young artist contact you, you will support him.
Depends on the music and the project, but definitely we would be interested.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. I mean, if for example a young artist sends us a link like here or then that doesn't work. But if someone takes the time to say hi, explain why they're interested in what we're doing, and to collaborate, I think that's the best you can do, and you will definitely take the time, of course, to check it out.
I think if you're like also if you're like it's important to be present in, like if you like Afro House, to try to attend Afro House events and in person meet them, have a conversation. Just I don't know.
So social media is also important, that you have this vibe
But he meant more like be part of the, like for example, you have Rise parties. If you go to Rise night, there's normally at least 10 artists that are really releasing records and doing things. That's a great opportunity to get into your first steps into the scene and what is happening. So what he was saying is that like try to be as much connected as you can outside of the social media, outside of the internet, in person. Yeah, that also will help the artists to open their mind and to grasp, you know, all the things that is not possible from home and from the computers.
Nice.
Yeah, I would also say become involved. That's very important. Just be part of the scene. Be there, support the whole thing. And I would also add to what you said, be daring. Don't copy your favorite track with a slightly different touch. Just, I mean, the whole, that's the advantage of Afro House in the Western world, in opposite to South Africa. There is not that much, so you're not competing to so many people. You can still, and that's also a very nice thing about Afro House, I think, that it is not that established, so there's still a lot of room, and it's not that, like, not all the paths have been walked there, so there's a lot of open spaces that you can slide into, that you can experiment with. So be daring, don't do what you've heard, do new stuff, and there's a lot of room, and you can make the next crossover tune by just being brave and daring and pushing the boundaries. And I think that's also a very exciting thing about Afro House, that you can push boundaries here. I think in techno, I don't know, I'm not that much into techno, but from how I observe it from the outside world, it's very difficult to push the techno boundaries. Whereas in the Afro scene, it is still possible. And I think just do it, get involved, get completely into it, and contact people. People are open. We welcome everyone who wants to be part of this.
And it's important to have like own music, or you have to be just a good DJ for.
I think the world we live in now, if you want to make it, you need to be producing.
Yeah.
Everyone's a
so.
DJ. Everyone's a DJ. If you want to be noticed, you need to be making music, and you need to be making good music so that you get noticed. Because I get bombarded with emails, with promos, and I can't pay attention to everyone. But if someone makes something that is amazing or exceptional and they're unknown, it gets to me very quickly, because there's a number of artists, producers, and DJs that I work with, and if they like it, they'll make sure that I hear it. And I totally agree with what the guys were saying earlier. If this goes for any scene, it doesn't have to be Afro House scene. When it comes to wanting to be part of something or connecting with a movement or a scene, you need to be present. So you can't be sitting at home posting pictures on your Instagram and expect to be part of something. You need to be at the events. You need to be at the front of the club. You need to be listening to the music that you want to be part of. You need to be knocking on the doors or chatting to the guys at the events. You need to make yourself present, because if you're not, you know, I don't think you're going to be able to connect the dots. And more than anything, if you want to get signed to a label, or you have a label in mind, you just got to be really good. I don't think labels are really interested in average stuff. And even if you are making average stuff, you could put the time and effort in to make stuff that will make sure that people notice you. So yeah, I think be present and, you know, master your craft.
I would agree, yes. I'm into the tech house scene, so I think in every scene
Is the same, yeah. Every scene, there's people that are trying to climb the ladder and get to the top, and every scene there's how I feel, what I just said is every single scene across the world. You need to be in it to be part of that movement, you know.
Kind of like it should be your heart, like.
And I think that's a major advantage of Afro House, since in the Western world it's still not that big. Yeah. So once you get really involved, you're quickly at the core. Whereas in the tech house or techno world, you have to stick out extremely to become relevant. because there are not that many players in the Afro House scene. You can, if you really work on it, it can go way faster.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that could help. Like that could be very interesting if you push, if you go for it. And even just when it's about DJing, if you're not a producer yet and you're just a good DJ, that is also, yeah, you can still stick out because there are not that many great Afro House DJs that are working on a local level, where in whatever city you're in. Even in Berlin, there are not many really good Afro House DJs, whereas there are quite a few good tech house or techno DJs, I assume.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing, because I think like now we're talking more in the context like being part of something or looking to be part of something or releasing on a label. But I would like also to encourage artists or anyone in general to dare to create their own space also. Like if it doesn't work, like, I don't know, reaching out to labels or stuff, I think it's very important to create your own space, your own parties, your own community with your friends or people like-minded. And I think that it can be also bigger, you know, like it can create something on its own.
Further, yeah, take you further.
I always try to put it very simple. Become relevant. Like, the world is not waiting for you, obviously, but tell your story in a way that the world is interested. And I think that's, you have to make people be interested in you, but that counts for every sort of music or art or whatever. It's not about you getting the opportunity, it's about you being interesting enough for the world to care for you.
I think just to end from my point of view, is exactly what you said is exactly why I think we're all here, because we all had our own agendas and no one was listening to us. So instead of going home and crying and getting depressed, we stood up and we created something that we could be proud of and we could represent. And I think everyone here hosts their own events to promote something that they are, you know, connected to. We release our own records, and we've created the platforms that we've wanted to be part of. So I think instead of sometimes I get producers sending me music that get upset that I'm not either playing it on my radio show or signing it on my label, these are the sort of guys that need to stand up and create their own platforms.
Yeah, I would say, like, thank you very much. It was a really interesting talk about the Afro scene. So I think if someone have some question to these guys, like, ask after this panel, but I would wrap it up. So thank you very much for coming. If there are some questions now, then please raise up your hands. If not, I would say thank you again, and we hopefully see us next year.
Thank you.
For having
Ciao.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks.